Hi, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good everything to you, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Tony, and this is my dear friend Dina.
Hello, friends.
And Dina's going to help us with the questions, ordering them, giving them to me, causing trouble for me. Uh, and I want to invite everybody who is here on Zoom to please turn your cameras on, unless, of course, you're in bed or you're naked or you're doing something nobody should see. But the reason we want you to turn your cameras on is so that we can feel you, we can see you, and we can communicate with you, because that's what this event is about. So let me explain the event, because not everybody who's here is a student. We have friends, people that are watching also on Facebook and on YouTube. And to those people, what you're going to see tonight is you're going to see students who are already studying Kabbalah asking questions about related both to the course that they're in the midst of, and also to other questions about Kabbalah related to their life, related to things that they have that they're trying to absorb from the fundamentals of Kabbalah. Now, I want you to know that the question and answer part, which is the entire part, is open to everybody. I mean, if you're on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, if you've got questions, we want to try to answer them for you, and we'll try to answer as many of the questions as we possibly can. Um, and all you have to do is write it into the chat, and all of the questions will get sorted and so on. We are giving a priority to the students that are on that are already studying with us, that are in the Zoom. You're going to see them as well, asking their questions live. But really, it doesn't have to be about the fundamentals of Kabbalah. It's not just for people who have studied. It's anything, any questions that you might have related to Kabbalah, or how Kabbalah relates to your life or to situations in the world, or anything that you may have heard or wondered about it. We'll try to answer that for you. So again, I want to remind the students to please turn your cameras on so that we can see you. Now, the fundamentals of Kabbalah, this first part of the course, uh, is is a process by which students are not only just learning how Kabbalists speak about reality, and how that can change their lives. They are, in a sense, unlearning the approach that our egoistic nature, our created nature, sort of dictates to us, the way we normally perceive reality. There's a reason why we perceive it that way, and it has to do with the basic quality that is given to humans, to the creature in nature. So the fundamentals both give insight into the structure of our emotional world and the world in general, creation as a whole, but it also teaches us to use different aspect in us, to try to reach for a different aspect above our nature. And that means that we have to, over a period of time, we unlearn the way that we are habituated to understanding, to hearing, and to thinking. And this begins to open up our awareness and change our perceptions. So that's what the people who you're going to be meeting on Zoom have been doing for the past little while. And if you have questions about that, we'd be glad to answer that as well. So
We have already a few live questions.
great.
Yes, so let's go to Monica. Let's see, we have live questions from.
Monica, you're unmuted if you want to go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
From Hector.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, okay. Well, I have a question about language, basically. I understand how everything outside the box, or the reality that I see can be fake. It's not real. And I understand how the information that comes from outside, it's transformed in my brain or some in some part of me. But what happens with other people? I mean, what how does the communication between the boxes work? How do I know that where you're telling me right now it's where you want to tell me, and it's not being changed by my senses or by the program? I mean, how does it work, the communication between the boxes? That's my question.
Well, let's put it in perspective. It's a good question. It's a really good question. Put it in perspective. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of my own perception, everything goes through that box, right? Everything goes through that filter of the program that says, what's in this for me? And everything that we hear based on that program, based on our self-interest, is going to always have those sorts of filters and seem to have that kind of meaning to us. It's going to mean, what can I receive from this person? How can it advance me? How is this going to make things better for me? So, but it doesn't, there aren't, as far as we're concerned, as far as you're concerned, Hector, the only thing that you really need to be concerned about is your own box. That is, if you alter everything that comes into that box, whether it's from another person, and basically, that's where people live. People don't live in this big space with a bunch of objects and things. They live in a world of feelings, ideas, purposes, and emotions. That's what the human reality is made out of. So that's what's going to be communicated by others to us. That's what connects us: meaning, direction, purpose, and this other question of who am I listening, acting for? Who am I serving in this process? So everything, no matter if it came from one other person across from us or a crowd of people all shouting different things, it would all still go through that same program, and it would be closer to reality or farther away from it, depending on our own inner quality and the change of that sense of egoism. Now, when we talk about reality, we're not saying that the world is not real, that there isn't, that we're not dealing and interacting with something. We are. But we don't truly understand what its purpose is in interacting with us, nor how we can relate with it in a way that we can grasp it, understand it, and be productive with it. So what's not real is the reasons why we do things, whether or not we feel something is good or bad. It's all good. And these are the things that we can't see and we don't feel. And that's what we're trying to learn and condition ourselves to.
We have another live question from Sean.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. All right, I wrote down my question in the chat, but I was just wondering, I had started listening to you guys from the YouTube videos that Tony did. And before that, I was listening to the philosophies of Alan Watts and Terence McKenna, and I was wondering if you guys have heard of them, and what, if you have, what your opinions are on their philosophies compared to the wisdom of Kabbalah.
You said Alan Watts, and what was the other one?
Terence McKenna.
Well, you rightly called them what you have been reading or absorbing there philosophy. Kabbalah is not a philosophy. Kabbalah is a science. It's a science that deals with everything all the forces that exist above human nature and also above the material world. It's not somebody's idea. It's a process by which these things can be investigated and directly experienced, and it's extremely ancient, and it's something that is always received, because it comes from nature itself, received, passed down through a teaching lineage. Now, the difference is vast, because from the point of the view of Kabbalah, there is already attainments that reach to the highest levels attainable by human experience. It's already there. And the people who teach it speak from that level. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the entire lineage reaches to that level. And we're also still very much in touch with them, whether they're present as seeming living bodies or not. All that stuff that you learned, I also read Watts and a lot of other people, and people who claim to be Kabbalists as well, Buddhists and all of that. They're helpful. They're constructive. They advance a person along their path. But ultimately, what has to happen is that a person is eventually brought by these things, by these little awakenings, to the point where they begin to study the real science. And the difference is that it's the real science. And that it is and how it is, I think, will come up in the other questions that I'm going to answer. Thank you for that question. And by the way, a few minutes ago we had 110 people with us, so there's probably more now, but that's great, and I welcome you all.
Okay. Since everything in the universe has been already predetermined, is it really true that everything happens for a reason, even for those who are seemingly ill-fated, like born in North Korea?
Particularly born in North Korea. No, things are not predetermined. This is the way that the ego looks at it. We look at it at time as linear, and as though this will happen at this point and this will happen at this point. And it's not. It doesn't really work that way. It rather works that there is an intention constantly functioning on the level of the forces that guide and sustain direct life, and that everything is in the hands of this upper force. Everything, absolutely everything, no matter how things turn out, it's as a result of a particular intention, and is intended always for the best. And it is the author of all events. Our job is more or less to be able to rise to a level where we also feel a similar intention as that. And when we do that, we begin to see the intention that's operating, and we come to, well, it's more than agree, but we come to agree with it. In other words, it's fixed in that it originates outside of the will to receive, outside of the creature. But the creature can develop to the point where it also partakes of exactly that same intention. So it's determined, and the question for us is, do we agree? Do we feel it as it is? But the second part of what you're asking is, it's always for good. It is good that does good. We don't necessarily see it that way. And in your question, there is this implication that, well, it's bad to be in this place because the person doesn't necessarily have what they need, and they're oppressed and all of this. But in the picture of the large system and how it all works together, it's all working for good, and it's all working to advance the entire system. This is the kind of perception of truth, of the real reality that we're trying to reach.
Next question from Daniel. What happens when we die? Where do we go immediately after death? What happens to our mind, our spirit, and our soul when we die?
Do we know where's that? That's
no,
from
we
the
don't
chat?
know. I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
well, the first thing that happens when you die is you go to the morgue or the funeral home. Death, in a sense, more than in a sense, is a construct of the ego that wants to divides things into pieces. What we call ourselves, the mind, our particular memories, and all of that, these are a lot of these things are really connected more or less to the qualities that are under correction in a given lifetime. And Kabbalah talks about the eternity of life by sort of framing it as incarnations. But incarnations have got to do with states, and so, as does everything. There is no real hard line between life and death. There is perception of reality within a certain state, and then the development of another state, a higher state, and then a higher state, and a higher state. And even while we're alive, we go through what Kabbalists call incarnations. But the large cycles are ones that we think of as physical life and death. And basically what the Kabbalists say is, well, the teacher of our teacher, the teacher of Rav Lightman, who was Baruch Ashlag, said to him, it's like changing a shirt. You take it off, you put it in the laundry, you put on a new one. And basically there's no time between lives, because there's no real time at all, and there's no time between states. There may be like a gap of of perception, but there's no real difference between the two, except the evolution. And what are we being evolved towards? A complete and total identification and equivalence of form with what we call the Creator, with that intention that impels everything.
Okay. I think we have another live question from John.
I didn't hear what did Gianni say?
No, you're
Muted, Gianni.
muted. We can hear you.
You can't hear me?
Now.
Okay, so a question was asked to me personally here. I think it's a great question for Tony. So the question is, why is Kabbalah magic forbidden? First of all, I don't know if it's forbidden. Maybe Tony can help us out. But the question is, why is Kabbalah magic forbidden? This student heard about Kabbalah magic. He read about it online through a particular person, philosopher, I don't know. And he's asking, why is it forbidden, or is it forbidden?
The term forbidden means impossible. In other words, does not exist. The very idea. See, there's a failsafe in the science of Kabbalah, and that is that a person cannot rise to the point of perceiving, understanding, and working with the forces of nature without transforming their own inner nature. In other words, if a person attains a certain state above their nature, and by the way, people do not attain this on their own. They attain it with other people. They attain it as a collective. So there's no individual that could manipulate the forces of nature, because the forces of nature are collective. They're not for the advantage of an individual. The word magic magic is the essence of egoism, and Kabbalah is the process of exiting egoism. There is no use of the forces of nature other than to help others to rise to levels of perfection and to do equal good to all parts of reality. So if you take the concept of what someone does with magic and compare it to that concept, you can see that these things are polar opposites. And within Kabbalah, it is impossible, and the word forbidden means impossible.
Okay, we have another live question from John Torres.
John.
John.
Hear me? Can everybody hear me?
We hear you, John. Go ahead.
Okay. My question was pretty similar to the last one, but except for there's a little more to it. It was, why is Kabbalah magic forbidden? But I also asked if you are familiar with Christopher Liam Thomas, because he has a book out, a course for self-initiation on Kabbalah magic, and what do you think about that? Him writing his book.
Well, when I was searching for true Kabbalah, I started out in the 70s looking for it. There were very few books. There were some books by English Kabbalists, Suarez and a few other people. Now there are many, many books. And these books are generally written by people. Well, they are written by people who have not received Kabbalah from an authentic teaching lineage. They're making stuff up and they're mixing things together, because for 2,000 years, Kabbalah has been completely hidden. We weren't capable of making the kind of corrections that humanity needs to make as a collective soul. We weren't capable of doing that. So there was no point in exposing Kabbalah, beyond a few people with particular qualities, and it was passed down directly from teacher to student. There weren't thousands of Kabbalists everywhere doing this. And Kabbalah magic is not related to Kabbalah at all. I don't even know why they have that word in there, except that at a certain point in the Middle Ages, people appropriated the term. So maybe it has something to do with, some other thing from some other place, or it's a concoction, but it is not Kabbalah. So if you're interested in it, there may be something interesting to learn there. There may be something about physics you can learn there. There may be something about medicine you can learn there. Something about some limited aspects of psychology, but it is not related to Kabbalah. But what's really good about that stuff is that it engages, it sort of catches you with your ego, promises you something, connects you and you feel that Kabbalah, and if you really look inside, you'll see that there is a sensation that Kabbalah is the big one, that this is the thing that truly grasps the whole system, that it's the source of human wisdom, and it actually is historically. So there's a positive attraction to something that will eventually bring a person to the goal for which their life was intended. But it does it by hooking us in with things where we're trying to sort of satisfy some stuff for ourselves. So in terms of the process of developing a person, it's good, but it is not real Kabbalah. There are 140 connections now.
Oh,
Welcome that extra 30 people.
We'll go to Adeline with another live question. She's on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Thanks. I find that I am attracted to Kabbalah, and it's been for several years that, the word has stood out to me. And my thing is that the way the world is now, with all the chaos and confusion and the news and what's going on, which is always happening every century, something big or whatever. But I feel that, I don't know if it's instinctual. It is instinctual that the only thing that can solve everything is the goodness and the love instead of the hate and the ego. So what I'm hearing from you about the wisdom, it's like I have the ego part, right? That keeps me, it's my survival to the everyday life, my ego. But inside my heart, it's, like, it keeps me believing that the only way that anything will ever get better is through love and not through the ego, not through hate, not through resentment and anger. So is this at whatsoever, is this a part of Kabbalah? If that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. The question makes perfect sense. And you can see that having good and evil as an either-or situation is not productive. And we've been struggling with it in our societies and in the religious approach and just in human consciousness in general. The ego makes this division between good and evil and wants to choose one or the other at a given time, or wants one to surmount the other. So that's what causes this back and forth extreme. It also causes social systems to fail constantly and be overtaken by other ones who now have the opposite quality. And it also causes crises in faith. And people go, why, God has abandoned me. Why can't I feel this anymore? This is precisely a basic step and a basic quality in Kabbalah that is really useful. And it's something that we need to really understand. The only way we perceive anything is through contrast. We never perceive anything directly, not good and not bad, not hot, not cold, none of those things. Our perception lies, and our choice and our life lies between these. And what we see in the world, for instance, now, the very difficult and conflicted ideas, especially you see it, well, in the Western world, it's unbelievably stark. This contrast is there because there's a very, very bright light, a possibility of a kind of a huge correction that's within our grasp. If we understand the true dynamic of how nature works with us, it doesn't do it by taking us out of evil and placing us into good and keeping us there, because neither of those things are real. What is real is the governing, the use of these forces in order to steer and guide the development of life. And when we learn how to use the up and down nature of being lifted by something beautiful, by a sense of faith, by good, and seeing its contrast and knowing how when something dark or bad that we consider bad appears, it's there in order to tell us what our next correction is. The thing is, how do we turn this into good? This is a real simplification. But Kabbalah teaches us not those two things, but something that is above it, that love, connection, and good is neither good nor bad, but it's what makes good out of both. And this is something that can actually be learned. There was an entire society that lasted for almost 2,000 years. That's the real story of what ancient Israel was about. It was about a connection between people and a connection with nature that was like that. Why it was possible always to overcome during that period is because of the collective connection between people based not on whether we like this person or not, whether there was a war or there wasn't, but whether we were connecting with each other in the same way that the Creator connects and cares for all of reality. This is attainable by humans. This is attainable. This is what we call God. But it's actually something that we build between us, and we reach a state that is just like the state that guides nature.
So to reach this state,
Yeah.
we'll go to the next question from a Zoom chat from Tamika. So when we pray, what is the best way to do so?
Okay. Well, prayer is a need. It doesn't matter what we say. Prayer is what we actually are feeling. And it takes time to develop the kind of need that you can call that you would consider a prayer. In the first place, we're looking out for the fundamental things that we need, our necessities. Those are okay, and that's neither a prayer nor not a prayer. That's not good or bad. But in Kabbalah, a prayer is only an asking we ask that we match the quality of the Creator. And that means that we are wishing to have the desire. We don't have this. This is what we're trying to develop, a proper desire. We pray, we ask, we try to develop a need to have a desire to actually care for others. Not just like do nice things, but actually to feel that if we cannot think about the whole, really want this connection to happen, that's not good enough for me. So the prayer is to ask to have the desire to actually have the desire. That's where we begin in the process. And as you continue to learn, the material that you'll be exposed to and the opportunities that you'll have if you continue, you'll begin to work. You'll actually be working with others, not just on your own, because this working on your own is only to get the basic concepts. You actually get to work in a lab that really allows you to begin to sense the forces of nature, and we only sense them through what is called prayer, through the development of a correct desire. Yeah.
Okay. Is the Creator male or female? And if so, is the male considered spiritual aspect and the female that which is our physical world?
Read the last part of that again?
Is the male considered spiritual aspect and the female that which is our physical world?
Okay. The Creator, of course, is neither. The Creator is a force. Gender are the two forces, the force of reception and the force of bestowal. And these forces of reception and bestowal are mirrored in everything in human experience. So that you'll see them, you'll see them in physics, you'll see them in reproduction, you'll see them in divisions within species and creatures and so on. It's men and women in Kabbalah are totally equal. So we're not speaking here about men and women. We're talking about a force which is called a feminine force, which is simply like a name that means the receptive force, and the bestowing force is called male. So it just in terms of Kabbalah terminology, we call the Creator masculine because it is a completely and only a giving force. There is no, we're not saying one is superior to the other. The system consists of both, and as I said before in answering this other question about good and bad, it's actually what exists above those two. But the entire system is guided by these two forces which come from the Creator, which is neither of those. So yeah, you could say that the physical world is feminine, but the entire creature, both men and women, are feminine, vis-a-vis the Creator, the creative force, which is always and only a force of bestowal, therefore called masculine.
Matthew is asking, which book do you suggest to better understand of the 10 Sfirot in terms that can help students with the abstract nature of the Sfirot?
There's a book, there's gradations of grasping Sfirot and how you work with them and so on. Now, the ultimate book for that is called the study of the 10 Sephiroth. But there's a lot of preliminary work, concepts that need to be grasped. And there is a book in the student book package. There are two, actually, there's two student book packages. And these are the books that you need for these 2 semesters. And one of the books in there, and I'll tell you something, they're 20% off right now. One of the books, Kabbalah for the Student, has a whole section that deals with like an introduction to the Zohar, in which Bala Salam, master of the ladder, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, has written a preliminary sort of introduction that allows us to understand what Sephirot are, how they interact with each other, and it gives us a picture of the worlds, of how Sephirot exist within us, but this is like the beginning steps of it. And so, by the way, the other books in the book package is Attaining the Worlds Beyond. This is in Kabbalah Revealed Book Package 1. Beautiful book. It's very emotional. It's really inspirational, and will help you along the way. And then there's Kabbalah Revealed, which deals with the principles. Again, it sort of reiterates them and takes it from a different view than maybe how I presented them. And there's also another package. Oh, great, that's great. There's also another package, Kabbalah Revealed 2, and it has the book Shamati, which is an amazing book about the process that a student goes through, the inner process, and that takes you into the point of reaching the first level of spiritual attainment. And it also has the Guide to the Hidden Wisdom as a complete book, which is what I was talking about before. So these are for, if you're a student, you get 20% off, and there's like I think if you can put in the chat, you get it with a discount code. That's true of both of these. And these are like, books are very important. It's different than reading on the internet. Books can have a root in the language of branches. They really have a spiritual root, a physical book that you carry with you. And when you're not studying with others, it's good to immerse in this when you have free time.
Let's go to live question.
We have 170 friends with us now.
Wow, we're growing.
Mm-hmm.
So our live question from China. I think that's the right way to say your name.
Hi, I can't seem to log on.
We hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay? My question is, I have a problem in trying to understand what is development state. What does it mean by that? And sometimes, no matter how much I read and try to understand Kabbalah, I'm still confused, and there are always more questions and keep coming up all the time.
Did you say what is the development state? I didn't quite catch what you mean by the first part of your question.
You said something earlier about reaching the development state or getting to the development state, and I didn't understand what you meant by that.
If I'm understanding you, there is a preparation, a preparatory phase, and it's a preparation that it's a period of time in which we immerse into these concepts. Now, it's not surprising that you get confused, because spiritual perception is only there momentarily. You'll find that something will, all of a sudden, you'll perceive something. It'll just something go boom, and a whole dimension will open up, and you'll see, oh, this is how things are connected. And then, and you'll think, I'm never going to forget this. I've got this. And then half an hour later, no matter how clear that was, it's gone, because spiritual cognizance is not made out of reason. It's very direct. It comes to the heart. It's emotional. And it is the same thing as you looking at something and confirming this is how it feels. You know, it's in a sense, it's like you creating your reality through confirming and agreeing with something that's presented to you. And what is being presented to you in this introductory phase of your learning are spiritual objects, but in which you're always seeing spiritual objects, but while you're studying, it's not going through that filter in the same way that it normally does, because you're unlearning just using your normal senses. Reading the authentic text, being exposed to the map that the Kabbalists give us and the target that they give us, it sort of goes under the radar of the ego. And it brings things directly to us because it's speaking to us in a spiritual language. Now, it takes time to get used to this, for the color to take, for it to stick to the canvas. And all during this period, things, and even after, confusion's a good thing. It means that your normal way of perceiving has sort of broken up, and an openness to spirituality on its terms is rising. So depending on the student, it will take more or less time to do this. And by the way, I'm still a student. Dina's a student. Your teachers are students. It's a way of, because what we're studying is life, and life is continually interesting, continually changing, and always drawing us closer and closer to the goal, beckoning us and showing us, no, your heart is not fully like the Creator. You have more to go. So study is this constant engagement with life in the way that I'm describing, to try to not use. You have to use your reason, but you have to use it to the point where it's, you're like, wow, I can't get there with this, and then all of a sudden, bang, something else will happen. I hope that answers your question. It's an important question.
Ricardo, he has a question to all the Kabbalah students. So he says, I have a silly question. Why Kabbalah practitioners who have the complete attainment seem to be no happy people?
Seem to not be
not happy people.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm not happy? How can you say a thing like that to me? That's interesting. I mean, I don't understand why exactly you're saying that, but I can say in general, and I don't know if you're asking me or you're asking the students, but I'm a student, so I can answer for them. Because no particular state is, within the perception of the ego, good or bad, is the desired state. It's a state above those things. You can't actually judge what's going on in a Kabbalist, especially a Kabbalist in attainment, unless he wants you to perceive what's going on. Because no matter what is happening externally or even emotionally, for a Kabbalist, the whole point is not to function from that place, but to function in love. Love is what connects a good and a bad state to good. There can be no love unless it's working against hatred. In other words, against its opposite. And the greater the pressure that we have, or the difficulties or whatever, it's actually giving us, what it's like if you've got a kid, or the kid is perfect. Oh, great, I love this kid. But do you love the kid? I mean, because he's good? What about when he's just like a pain in the, and will not do what you want and won't learn? And is your love less? No, actually, it evokes. I remember when my daughter was born, a couple of days later, it was like, man, it was no sleep and it was horrible. And I went, there's a kid in the house, and it's not me anymore. So no matter how tired, no matter how difficult, no matter how opposed, and no matter what one's own emotions, it's not the issue. The issue is, what's my intention here? Does the Kabbalist want good for those around him or her in this situation and in general, or not, regardless of what you see on the surface? Because what we see on the surface cannot tell you what's going on inside of a person. A person can be seeming to be doing a really good thing, and actually their intention can be completely bad. completely self-serving and even maybe destructive to the person that they're doing it for. So you can't judge by those sorts of appearances.
We have another live question. Sean Easton.
Hey y'all. First of all, I'm so glad y'all are doing this. This is amazing. The fact that I used to watch your YouTube videos and I'm able to talk to you guys personally now, it's just amazing to me. I have way too many questions on my plate, so I can't ask them all now. But I would like to know about what your opinions are on the pole shift and about the golden age. They said in 2012 we completed our cycle. I would like to know your thoughts on that and what you believe of the pole shift.
Fair enough. How shall I put this? An age does not come upon us, overtake us, and then we live happily ever after. An age means coming of age, and that means to understand nature, humanity's role in it, and how nature works in us. That is, to come to a point where we're actually engaged as a collective, humanity as a whole, as a collective, engaged equally with the intention of the force of nature. That is, that we begin to actually, parts of humanity begin to function just like nature and bring that quality from nature, be able to channel that into society as a whole. Even if it only has to be a small group that is actually aligned with the force of nature in terms of their intention, to bring a so-called golden age to the world in general. And that kind of good can only happen through connection, because reality, nature is a holistic mind. It's a holistic being. And when we rise intentionally, or when a group of us rises to intentionally to be like that, it ushers in that kind of light into all aspects of life. You know, still, vegetative, animate, human, and above human. That group, or whatever that is, that aligns with higher nature. That's happening now. And it happened not in 2012, but it was initiated in 1995 when the Zohar and Kabbalah was allowed became possible to share it with humanity in general, where it was freed as to be common knowledge and not to be considered, some kind of occult, some hidden thing. So that's where we are. And as far as the pole shift, it happens. Those kinds of things happen.
One more. Okay, another live question from Ashok. Hopefully.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. I am from India and I have this question. Who am I speaking to actually? Okay, is this a teacher to student education? This is my only question.
You mean, is it a direct teacher to student, like master to disciple? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
It used to be. It had that form for a couple of thousand years, but it changed in around 1995. It had that form because humanity in general didn't have the need, the capability, and didn't have the coarseness of egoism required to oppose and reveal the highest light. So it went directly like master to disciple in order to maintain its integrity and make sure that it survived, so to speak, until this period of time. Now, it's the fulfillment of that teaching. And the fulfillment of the teaching is for the collective, for the whole of humanity, as a science, as something that can be grasped and used like any, and would have products of technology, and the technology being how it affects society. So now the teaching goes from a teacher in attainment to thousands of people, and actually the experience between thousands of people and as experienced by you as an individual through the connection to other people and in connection to that Kabbalistic master is exactly the same, and maybe even more powerful than it was from master to disciple, because the job is very different now. The job now is the correction of reality as a whole. It's the whole world. This is not just the attainment of one, of making certain that one or a small number of people have attainment and carry it forward. It's not a mystery anymore. We've developed to a point where it's something that will be shared, operated, and lived in by thousands, millions of people.
Mike from Boston, what mantra or actions do you incorporate in your day-to-day life to bring yourself into the mindset of Kabbalah?
We call it study. Study means to expose. See, this has to be done consciously. There's no autonomic aspects in Kabbalah. We don't still the mind. You can't stop the thought of creation. It runs constantly. We either agree with it, I think that it's ours, or realize that it's coming from above. So it doesn't help us to go down to a vegetative level of desire or an inanimate level of desire. There's no meditation. It is a conscious, constant engagement with the thought of creation and trying to match this. You know what the thought of creation is? This is the blueprint of everything in existence, is to create a creature and to bring that creature to complete fulfillment. That's the purpose of life. That's how creation was created. It's the only thing that ever really happens, whether it looks good or bad to us, and it's the only reason for which anything happens. And so study means to constantly be engaged with it, look for opportunities within the Kabbalistic teaching to move from the mind rather to the heart and sense this as a tangible reality. And it depends on the level that the student is at. I and the instructors study every night or morning or however, depending on where you are around the world, 3 hours, may do other every day, and may do other things in terms of teaching or preparing or writing or whatever. But so it's a big part of our lives. But it wasn't always. It was like a spare time thing. I went through exactly the same process that you're going through, and it depends on a person's need. But it's basically study and becoming engaged with others in the study. That's what changes reality.
Okay. Liz is asking, I'm watching you live and came across this by chance. And this is touching upon points I've searched for my entire life. I'm pinching myself to make sure it's real. Is it? If yes, how can I join? How much does it cost? What do I do?
Yeah, it's real. Well, there are all of these students. This is what the people who are on Zoom did. They joined a course to learn the fundamentals, and that's at Kabbalah.info, and which I think you probably saw when you clicked on to watch this thing. And we have a course that's starting July 1st, a new course. There's a couple of semesters, and you can go on and on. Now, what it costs is really up to you. Our tuition model is really constructed in a way that will enable everybody to learn. We call it pay what you wish. I mean, according to the value that you get out of it, what it's worth to you, what you can pay. We don't want we don't want the cost to prevent anybody from learning. But it does cost us to do this. We have servers, we've got, there's all kinds of background hardware and people who need to work at maintaining those things. The cost is, to us, is about $25 a student per semester. So when you join, if you sign up for that course on the 1st, you'll see that there's a banner there that will explain that to you, and in which you'll be able to determine, maybe you can even help somebody else who can't afford it. You can pay a little more if you want to do that. I think you'll find in the chat there'll be links to the new course and to and maybe even to the explanation about our tuition, the pay what you wish stuff. So take a look at that, and I wish you a lot of luck in your study, and I'm glad that you feel that way about it.
Tony,
Mm-hmm.
are you ready
For what?
for the blitz? The time has come. Okay.
Wait a minute. Let
What?
me explain what this
Okay.
is. This is where I get put to the test. We got 3 minutes, and I have to answer as many questions as I can within 3 minutes. And
I will be counting.
you're counting
Yeah.
them, and what do I win? Okay, never mind. All right, let's go. Start the
Okay.
clock. I can't see the clock. There's something covering it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, go.
Okay. Is Kabbalah the Torah? How does the Torah differ from the book of the Zohar?
Yes, Torah means instruction by the light. Everything about the upper force teaching humanity and evolving it is called Torah. There's different languages in Torah that go to different levels of perception. The Zohar is Torah, but it is a very special language.
How and when does one find out what is the purpose of his or her particular part of the soul, the purpose or part for which the Creator had placed them into the world?
You find out right at the beginning what your purpose in life is. It is to fulfill the thought of creation. Your individual purpose in life, what you do, what work you do, who you serve, what job or whatever, is not your actual purpose. Those things are there to help us attain the fact that we also want to fulfill everybody. Our purpose in life is to be able to feel good that does good and to attain exactly the same intention towards others and towards the whole as the Creator has towards us when in his initial thought to create a creature and to fulfill it.
What techniques are used to experience the higher world, and when are they taught?
All connection to the higher world evolves in us through our connection with others. It's taught right away in everything that we read in the books and in everything that the instructors tell you in your courses. Do we recognize it right away? No, because we're hearing with self-directed ears, with a sense that is thinking, when is this going to happen for me? It will happen as you sort of grow and bloom, and it will become very clear as you go on.
Less than 1 minute left. How is egoism different from the desire to receive, or is it?
Egoism and the desire to receive for myself at the expense of others, that's what Kabbalists call egoism. Simply to receive, well, there's nothing we can do about that. We're built that way. It's what thought is connected to it. For whom am I receiving? That makes up that intention. Is the will to receive or the will to bestow?
Can you tell us what is meant by the center of the group?
The center of the group is actually a kind of a collective sense of self. It's an identification with others as actually being part of me. 3, 2,
2, 1.
That was easy.
It actually wasn't that easy. I didn't get that many.
No, you got 4 questions.
Okay.
You can do better than it.
Yeah, but,
You know,
but I
you
have to
can-
talk really fast, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Just a second. Okay, so is the ego a part of the klipot?
Well, the ego basically separation. Whatever separates us from others is, it gets the general term klipot or shell. It means, it's something that separates one piece of reality from another. The essence of the separating force is self-interest. So we would call that the shell or the klipot.
Nosai, I guess that's how we got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nosai.
Okay. Nosai. Okay. Is it true that good and evil doesn't exist if you travel the middle pillar? Being that good and evil is subjective, and if you follow heart, it doesn't exist. Does this make any sense?
Yeah. Yes, you can say that structurally is so. But it's not that they don't exist. They all exist, but they exist for a purpose. And when you say middle path, I think you're referring to the tree or the middle line, the middle pillar of the tree. The thing is that what we're trying to get to is purpose. What is my purpose? What is our purpose here? Purpose is always greater than the events, and purpose gives meaning, correct meaning, according to what? According to a goal. If we understand the goal, truly understand the goal, which is probably, really the hardest thing to in the beginning stages of this work, to truly understand the target, then it's not that good and bad don't exist. They exist as forces, but they have a use. They have a good use. And this sort of middle line is aligning that to the correct purpose, to the correct goal. And that's what transmutes them, the whole picture, into good.
Let's go another live question from Adeline. Adeline? Okay. We also have...
My question is... I'm sorry? Hello? Hello?
We hear you, Adeline. Go ahead.
I apologize. My question is about fulfillment. When you say fulfillment, it's like, does this mean, as far as when you, the purpose of you being existing, does this mean like if you don't get it right in this lifetime, you'll come back and do it again and do it again until you get something right, whatever the fulfillment is?
It's not that you get it, that a person gets it right or wrong. The fact that you're on the path in the first place, if you stay on the path, means that you basically got it right. But it's a question of completing. There are 100 and we say there are 125 states to complete fulfillment or to complete correction. In other words, there are layers within the human emotions and human the structure of the inner world of humanity, right, of the creature, that we have to traverse, and we want to. So the whole thing, Kabbalah is designed to bring a person within one lifetime to complete correction, what we call Gemar Tikkun, the end of correction, or to complete fulfillment. And to not only entry into the spiritual world, because even reaching the first level of correction is the spiritual world, it's the beginning of it. But not only that, in a single lifetime, a person can reach the highest state. So the idea of reincarnation is to move through those 125 states until it's completed. If you want to look at it through the paradigm of time and multiple lives, you can say that if a person does not complete the 125, they come back to exactly where they left off, and almost immediately, and they grow up. They find, again, they begin to learn. They find Kabbalah. They begin to learn again, and they begin to ascend from that place. They never lose what they had, but they may have lost touch with what they had for it. They may have a state in which they've lost touch, where they don't have that desire. Without having that desire, Kabbalists call that death. And by the way, it's reflected in our perception of what life and death is. Death isn't really a nothing state. It's just without a desire for spirituality. As a matter of fact, before we come to understand what spirituality is and what the goal is, all of this physical life, by Kabbalists, is called death. We actually ascend out of death when we begin to learn how nature is really structured and what the upper force actually wants from us. We wake out of that desire, which is kind of vague and pointed in the opposite direction. You're asking a difficult question, and it has to be answered in stages according to how you learn.
Karen is asking, is it unusual that I have become more introvert because I feel that I cannot discuss what I am learning and my spiritual experiences and feelings with my husband or family members? I continue to be the same loving wife and mother, but feel that this is a very personal experience.
Right on.
Yeah.
Really. What's your experience with that?
I can completely relate to that. I've been on this path now for about 10 years. And that's what you feel at the beginning. You want to share it with everyone around, but you understand that it's something so internal and personal that sometimes it's really hard to find words to share what you feel with others. It is.
Yeah, and I think that I also found that, and you want to, because if you feel you've got something, you found something great, you want to share it. But it's probably not a good idea to do that. If you want to share it with your family or a friend or something, better to give them a book. What you don't want to do is you don't want to create a situation where you create problems in your family or in your work, because people have to have a certain quality inside them that is open to this. Like, it seems like maybe a lot of this, you go, oh, that's what I always thought. This is just sort of connecting the dots of things I always knew or what I was always looking for. Not everybody feels that. You feel that because you have a particular quality, point in the heart. And it makes this whole thing seem natural to you. But to people who don't, and who don't feel that their egoism presents a problem for them, not the regular egoism of thinking you're great, but this, the thing that really causes separation. Once you begin to perceive that, people don't want to hear that. They really don't want. It's like you're calling them out or something. And that's not what we're here to do. That's why we put out our dissemination, our advertising of Kabbalah has to do with sharing something, and if a person's attracted to it, they'll come to it. But there's no coercion in this process, and it can seem to a friend or to a family member that you're trying to get them to think what you think or believe what you believe, and they're not prepared to. Best to show them the benefit of this by example of how it makes you feel towards them and how they begin to see a quality in you. That's the best way to influence your friends if you want to.
Okay, live question from Alex.
Something, and if a person's attracted to it, they'll come to it. But there's no coercion in this process, and it can seem to a friend or to a family member that you're trying to get them to think what you think or believe what you believe that they're not prepared to. Best to show them the benefit of this by example of how it makes you feel towards them and how they begin to see the quality. Okay, so Alex, you heard that we just called on you, so you have your question, or if not, then we'll go ahead.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. My question is a very simple one. I've recently started studying the Law of One by the Humble Servants of Ra. And they basically talk about very similar topics as does the Kabbalah, and where they basically say that obviously all is one and all is unity, and a human has to decide for himself whether or not he wants to be. Yes. I have my question. My question is this: is the understanding of a person being of service to others versus of service to self, will the... my question is a very simple one.
You're off. Alex, turn your speaker off while you're talking to us. Maybe put it in the chat. Let's go forward.
Yeah, we will move now to another question. Regina, how do we know that Creator wants our best? And if his best the same as mine? I know it's not. So does it become the same as my experiences and in a state transform? I hope so.
Yeah, well, we don't know. That's the whole point. That's how the upper reality and the Creator is concealed from us. It's that we don't feel that the things that are happening in our life, every event, every thought, even our own thought, is coming from the upper force. So the fact that we don't know is the concealment. Eventually, as we begin to attain, we begin to want what the upper force wants. And it's felt in us as our own desire, because it is, but it isn't until we make it so, until we decide so. In other words, until we have a screen, a masach, something that covers, that will not allow us to bring things into our vessels of reception. And a masach, a screen, is a decision that whatever this is that I'm receiving, I will receive only in order to fulfill this idea of good that I may not even right now sense or feel, that I will try to sense as good, that I will sense it as coming from above, and that because of not receiving it into vessels of reception, which the upper force doesn't have, the Creator is not made of that, that this thought will become my thought. I will be in absolute agreement with it. I will share it no matter what happens. I'm actually feeling that this is the correct and good. There's some subtleties in there. Think about that.
Live question from Frank.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you. Go ahead.
All right. I just starting my classes, but I've been to a couple of congresses already, including 2017 in Israel and just recently in New Jersey. My question is, and I don't think I'm there, I'm not even close to anything. Once you tap into the force, is there no way out? I mean, I'm asking this for specific reasons.
Specific reason.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Frank.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so my question again is, once you start studying Kabbalah, is there no way out? I mean, if I stop studying Kabbalah, I mean, am I gonna be actually pushed back into the system by an upper force or something similar? Because I've been told, like, once I start, I can't stop.
I don't know who told you that. A person. This is completely based on your decisions. I would say that once you begin to study, your perception changes. If you continue to study, it deepens and becomes like a permanent quality, especially if one's commitment is permanent. But a person does not. There's certain things you're not going to forget. You know, it changes your point of view. But will it be alive in a person if they say, "Well, this is not for me"? No, it won't be. It might even make them feel like, "Look, and I don't like that, and I'm never going back to that." It just depends on what's the best for a person. And it's totally dependent on the desire of the person. That's the only thing that advances and reveals things for us. It's according to a desire and the development of a correct desire. If a person does not have that, or maybe has it and feels like, well, I don't want to do this work, or it's too hard, or it's too boring, or whatever it is, they're free to do whatever they want. They're free to go. I don't know what do you remember what you studied in school? How much of it is alive in you? If you don't engage with it, it doesn't stay really as a living thing. Although it does seem that once people are touched by it, they tend to, some part of it stays with them. They may even return many years later. But no, it's you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Do you believe by learning Hebrew and studying Kabbalah books in original language, one may be able to relate to the thoughts of the author in more effective way? In other words, does Hebrew as language have any special instrumentality in the process of learning the study?
In the initial parts of it, stages of it, no. First of all, language talks about sensation. That's what it is. It conveys sensation, and Hebrew is a spiritual language because it was created in order to serve what we would call spiritual or Kabbalistic sensations. So it's constructed in a special way. It's kind of multidimensional. It points in a number of directions all at once and incorporates a field of meaning, just like emotion does. But it's important in studying certain things later, as you develop more. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's better. But in the foothills and the preliminary learning, it's not necessary at all. It's not absolutely necessary either to attainment, which is a sensation. A person can reach a lot without it. But it was written in that language, and so of course there's meaning to it. It's a scientific language that deals with those concepts and sensations. You can go for many years, not need to, and there are thousands of people all over the world studying Kabbalah at an advanced level that don't know Hebrew. But the Hebrew of Kabbalah is not that big a language. It's, if you knew 200 words, there's 200 words in Kabbalah basically. Maybe there's a little more than that, but basically that's it. And a person can learn that. But I'll tell you, but even if you know them, one has to grasp the sensation. It's not the words. And that's the thing that we're teaching in KabU, to reach the connection with others and the sensation that comes from that total interconnected quality.
Susanna is asking, I would like to have some clarification about the only one freedom. Is intention our only one freedom? What's the scope of intention?
Well, the way that humans are built and the way that we are influenced by the forces of nature, we're not individuals, actually. We are a collective, in a sense, a being, like many cells of a being or many organs of a single being. And that's expressed as society. So if we want to undergo a change, it has to be in relation to what we're serving in the large, in the total body of humanity. So our free will, before we study Kabbalah, consists of ignorance. In other words, not knowing the laws of nature and how they affect us, and thinking that we have all kinds of scope, and not realizing how much is controlled. The truth is that everything is controlled except one thing. To place ourselves in a society that is going to advance us towards interconnection with others and towards serving others for the purpose of revealing and serving the thought of creation. And everything all decisions that we make in life are actually only leading us to a place where, first of all, we find such an opportunity where all of those forces exist, and we can make that choice. And after we make that choice, all of the positive forces that will shape us towards the goal kick in. Until we get there, we experience what we think of as free will in almost everything. And you know what? It doesn't really matter where the free will is. What does matter is to get ourselves into a situation where we can begin to learn and ascend. And it will become clear to us there.
Okay, Tony, are you ready now?
No, I'm not ready. Okay, go.
Okay.
Wait, where's the countdown?
Timer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start. Can the animals advance also? If so, how? Does Kabbalah talk about animals reaching a point when they no longer eat one another?
Animals are a level of the creature, of which we are the head. So they develop when we develop, and no, they will always eat each other, just like cells and microbes will, and we will not see it as bad, because it isn't bad.
Why is this path ordered in a specific way?
Because it descended from a complete wholeness into a perception of separation by a particular pattern through 10 sephirot. It's like structure of DNA, and therefore, in order to go back to that whole interconnected existence, we have to trace the path back through that pattern.
What do you do when people ask you to pray for them or loved one that is having a challenge or issue?
Think about them being able to use that experience to come into closer proximity to the thought of creation and good that does good. Think about them not being attacked by their ego, but understanding that they can rise through this situation.
What are your thoughts on Kabbalistic astrology?
It's a full moon. I don't know. I don't really have thoughts about it. It's not Kabbalistic astrology is not like the astrology that we have today, and it's too complex and broad to really explain what that actually is. So maybe later.
Is higher nature also called consciousness?
Kabbalah doesn't really use the term consciousness. Higher nature is the force that creates, guides, and fulfills all of life, and it's an intention.
What do you think about meditation with the 72 names of God?
Those are not meditations. Those are descriptions of states that a person can attain, but it's not. It was never intended to be a meditation, and no real Kabbalist meditates.
Would you say that ego and bestowal are forces that balance each other?
No, they do not balance each other. We have to balance them through our work above the two of them.
When one attains the higher level, is this called heaven?
Yes, the highest level of correction, this sensation of care and love for everybody in our heart.
10 seconds.
Above hatred and despite it, that's heaven.
Would you please elaborate more about the light? Why is the Torah named relating to light?
That was easy.
Was it?
No.
No. Okay. But
well, let's answer that
got,
anyway. What is that question?
Would you please elaborate more about the light? Why is Torah called? Oh, sorry. Why is Torah named relating to related to light?
Or is light? Torah means instruction by the light. Light is the thought of the Creator. Attaining the thought of the Creator, which is the intention behind creation, is the attainment of the light. So instruction on how to do that is called Torah. And I think we're
yes, and you got 7 questions this time.
This time 7?
7. It was 4, the first blitz, and the second one 7 questions.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I hope that we do these question and answer events at some point after each of these courses. We'd like to have the opportunity to meet you, and I have met some of you at congresses, and there are some familiar faces here. It's good. It's great to have that connection. If you didn't get your question answered and and it's still burning in you, please go to the to the forum where the instructors can answer your question. Put it in there. It'll help everybody else, because usually one person's question is also another person's question as well. And just a reminder, there's you can get that book package. It's 20% savings right now, and there are 2 packages that you can get. If you are watching us streaming and you're interested in what you've seen here, our next semester starts July 1st, and you can go to edu.Kabbalah.info, and I think you'll put that link in the chat. Check it out. Look around there. There are some preliminary courses too. If you don't want to jump right in to the study, there are some pretty interesting things there. Just sign up, and you can do some self-study. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I think you've covered everything.
Well, this was great. I had fun. I hope you did, and I hope that it served you, and you got some of your questions answered, or got questions answered you didn't even know you had as questions. It feels really good to see all your faces, and thank you very much, Dina.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, friends. It was a real pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
There is a chain of souls with the last generation in this time, making a circle from a line. Enter a special place where you rise above your mind. Close your eyes, hold your friends like a child holds his dad. There's the creator, there's the created being. Rebausch to Adam Rishon. There is a chain of souls. We're the last generation in this time, making a circle from a line. Break down every wall, shine a light in every land. Thousands of friends, thousands of faces, and we're living as one man. There's the creator, there's the created things, and there is the ten in between. From Rebausch to Adam Rishon, there is a chain of souls. We're the last generation